it. And so we would appreciate that all microphones are muted. So once again, I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Joshua Awesome. Just as a way of, just introducing myself, I think I've switched on my video for 1 minute. Okay. But I think what we should do is to just, just pass it now to Dolly, who will then take charge and introduce our guests.
So, thank you, Dr. Awesome. A brief description of Petunia. Petunia has over 11 years of experience and expertise as a business and executive coach. She's a speaker, facilitator, and empowerment specialist. She's experienced in coaching small groups and individuals, as well as training and facilitating workshops and seminars. Her experience includes strengthening the implementation of programs in HIV/AIDS prevention, gender-based violence, sexual reproductive health, youth capacity development, and coordination. She has worked for both the private and government sector as follows: the Institute of Security Studies, the Center for Municipal Research and Advice, the South African National AIDS Council, the German Development Corporation, including the secondment of the Mpumalanga Office of the Premier and the South African Qualifications Authority. She has served as a technical expertise in the South African and Namibian group. She's also worked as an advisor for the ESA Ministerial Commitment and the SRH in South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, and Mpumalanga. She grew up in rural Limpopo from a single-parent household, and she knows very well what it's like not knowing where the next meal will come from. She's doing her second master's in business and executive coaching at the University of Witwatersrand. Hello, Dr. Awesome. I'm done with Petunia's introduction.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Petunia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Josh and my lady, Dolly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Should I continue?
I'll give you the opportunity to present after my welcome keynote.
Okay,
thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Dolly, please also do a formal introduction for Dennis. Thank you.
Dr. Awesome. Hello.
Yes, please introduce Dennis also for us. Thank you.
I got only, Dr. Awesome, the introduction for just Petunia, not Dennis as well.
All right, okay. I guess I will take that on and introduce Dennis. All right, so I have the honor and privilege to do the introduction for Dennis. Dennis is a psychometrist, independent practice, career, and leadership coach, running her own practice in northern suburbs of Pretoria. She has extensive management experience in retail. She has experience in retail and education in the mining industry. She empowers her clients to see possibilities where they thought there was none, and then together craft solutions for those issues. Her coaching journey started in 2010 while she was working for Anglo American Platinum in Rustenburg as a psychometrist, working in the psychological service department. Part of her duties and work with the talent management team, her role was to identify development areas of junior, middle, and senior managers for succession planning purposes through the use of psychological assessments and also recommended developmental strategies. In addition, she offered coaching services as a developmental strategy. Her coaching philosophy is to provide space for highly effective individuals to explore areas of personal transformation in the context of organizational and individual development. Being a psychometrist and independent practice, she incorporates assessments in her coaching to create self-awareness for her coachees and to appreciate and be mindful of the uniqueness of her clients, which will then form the basis of her coaching session. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dennis to our Mind Your Mind session today. You're welcome, Dennis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Josh.
All right. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask everyone to please switch off their videos so we can then switch to webinar style. And I'd like you to please, as much as you can, please, for the next 20 minutes thereabout, give us your attention as we basically share on our theme for the month. So over the last couple of months, we have basically hosted several sessions at the African Institute of the Mind. And this is an edition which we've tagged African Institute of the Mind, Mind Your Mind 5.0. And our theme this month is to nourish to flourish. Our focus at the African Institute of the Mind is prioritizing your well-being, one mind at a time. For the benefit of those who are just joining us, my name is Joshua Awesome. I'm privileged, humbled, and honored to be the founder of the African Institute of the Mind. And this is a non-profit expression of my coaching psychology practice, which has grown over the last 2 decades from Awesome Associates that it was to now becoming Awesome Coach Team Build and Awesome Coach Team Build and Training Systems. So just to start, I'd like to open this session by just using a quote that talks to nourishing and flourishing by the father of positive psychology, a distinguished positive psychologist who actually I draw my knowledge, experience, inspiration from in the name of Professor Martin Seligman. And I remember when I sat in the class learning about positive psychology with Martin Seligman, I remember after the very first day, I was so excited about the class that I went to buy most of his books that I could find. And the following day, he was surprised to notice this young Black African, had come to him with 5 copies of different books titles he had written, and was wondering, who's this young man who had bought several copies of his book and wanted him to sign all of them. And one of the reasons why I share this photograph is because of the quotes that I'm going to start with. When we take time to notice the things that go right, it means we are getting a lot of little rewards throughout the day. And so as we talk about nourishing to flourish being our theme for this day, this month of August, a month that we are celebrating women in our beautiful rainbow nation, South Africa, I'm reminded of a retreat that I had the opportunity to attend just yesterday, sponsored by the Cambridge Health Alliance, and it was a very beautiful experience yesterday as I joined that international retreat. And I remember one of the things that had happened to me yesterday. I was indoors all day and I didn't step out of my house until we began a particular session where we were asked to step out of our homes or take what was called a mindful walk. And that became the very first moment I stepped out of my house. And this time it was around 4, 5 p.m. South African time. And as I stepped out of the house, this session was going to go for about 8 minutes. And I began to, for the very first time, look at my garden with new eyes. And as I looked at my garden with new eyes, I began to see something I have not noticed in the last couple of weeks. And what did I notice? I noticed some greens that were blossoming and they were flourishing. And it hit me so strongly that I left the garden back into the room in my house with this impression: give some form of nourishment to, will eventually flourish. A couple of weeks back, my gardener had come into the garden area and had trimmed all the old and dying plants. And that was what gave rise to that which is about to bud. And those of us who live in South Africa know that winter is actually on its way out. And it's about to give rise to spring. And spring will hopefully, begin to spring forth and bud in a couple of days or the next 1 week or thereabout. And I'm telling this story because of something very interesting I'm about to share with us in my next slide. And I want you to watch the screen closely. Nourishing is the secret to flourishing, ladies and gentlemen. As I share this image, I'm reminded of the beauty and bounty that is possible when we nourish, when we nourish anything, when we nourish our minds, when we nourish our environment, when we nourish the relationships that we find ourselves. We need to constantly be asking ourselves is, what are we not nourishing? Because a lot of flourishing. What are we not nourishing? Because when you don't nourish, then you should not expect something to flourish. So we need to be asking ourselves one very important question. And this very important question that I ask you to ask yourself is a very, very key question. What should we be aiming for in life? What should we be aiming for? As I think about this, I'd like you to take a moment and just type in the chat. What have you nourished the last 30 days? Type in the chat what you've nourished in the last 30 days. And if it has flourished, I am so happy to hear that it has flourished. But more importantly, I'd like to take you to my very next slide. What should we aim for in life? As I place this slide up, the question I'd like you to think about is I want money. Some people want fame. I don't know what you're aiming for, but whatever it is, please type it in the chat box. I am aiming for increase the level of knowledge knowledge. And one of the reasons why I'm aiming for this is because the more I'm able to learn, just talking about it here. And it's quite interesting to note what he does. And he began to unpack that for centuries, All right, I think we're having a bit of technical challenges. So I'm just going to just maybe restart this video. And I'd really appreciate if everyone can please keep their mic off. All right, so I'm not sure where we got cut off, and so I'll just maybe take it back to this point, and I'm just hoping that from here we can just basically just take it on again. Please, if you can hear me, please type in the chat box. I would appreciate getting some response. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm not sure if this is where you got cut off, where I was telling the story. Thank you. I can see some responses now via the chat. So what can go wrong usually goes wrong, and our sincere apologies. The connection seems to be acting up a bit today, but maybe just to take it back a little bit. So just to wrap up what I was saying earlier, what should we be aiming for? All types of things. People are aiming for all types of things. Some people are aiming for, money. Others are aiming for, knowledge. In my case, I'm aiming to learn more so I can earn more. And earning more for me is not just about money. So here's what I begin to conclude with. Before we got cut off, I was going to tell you a short story about this image. Early last decade, I had found this interesting image of the Mrs. World competition on their Instagram page. And it was so resonating for me because the photograph, yes, you could faintly see the face of the queen, but more importantly, the crown. And what it meant to me was the fact that your dream, regardless of how blurry it is, you can achieve whatever it is, and the beautiful thing about this image is that when I copied it early last decade, I had no idea that I had planted the seed of positivity in my mind about it, and I'd looked at the photograph so much that I didn't even remember I had copied it onto my MacBook. And so as one who is very, very intentional about visualizing things and how things ignite and inspire me, I copy the photographs or I dream something and then I revisit it on a regular basis. And I didn't revisit this one, but not knowing that it had registered in my subconscious. And some way, somehow, that talks to something very profound that last year, when I went to climb Mont Blanc, when we began to have our meeting, the expedition leader from South Africa introduced everybody to everybody just before the trip. And I had no idea that this very woman, Mrs. South Africa, was going to be on that climb. Why am I sharing this with us? When we plant the seed of positivity in our mind and we nourish it daily with love and happiness, it will flower and flourish and then fear begins to die. I like to use this to encourage everyone and anyone who is listening right now, to say to you that there's so much possibilities trapped within you if you only continue to nourish that which is being planted in the canvas of your mind right now. And I share this from a good space. And today, me and this great woman, we are friends. And we've come to connect and realize the beauty of our commonality with regards to, certain areas of our lives that has to do with mountaineering and touching the lives of people. And it's a beautiful relationship that has a connect from a positive psychology perspective. And I share this intentionally just to say to everyone and anyone who is watching that the seeds that are positively planted in your mind, when nourished daily with love, will begin to flourish and flower beyond your imagination. So before I share this video in conclusion, I'd like you to look at the very words that are on top of the image. When you look at it, blocking, loving another, making errors. Each word, when you look at the very first alphabet and you merge them together, it eventually means blame. The question I'd like to pose to you as I begin to close my welcome keynote is, what are you blocking because you are not loving another, which is then leading towards errors on a continuous basis? Because as you continue to blame and you judge others, not knowing the space and place they are in, you might be blocking possibilities from emerging to you or evolving from you and making this world a better place. I mean, as Africans, we all know the story, and we've heard the story of our beloved Chadwick, who just passed on, and how he was battling with colon cancer. And we hear that people were actually criticizing him because he was losing weight. And the point I'm trying to make is that when you live a non-judgmental life, you will not need to rethink how you have treated people. You will quit blaming. And I hope that this video would bring some inspiration to you and help you understand the power behind what I am trying to unpack here today. Enjoy. The video in itself is self-explanatory. And I'd like you to maybe just take a moment to just type something that stood out for you in this video in the chat box. So as I conclude, I'd like to invite us all to open ourselves up and realize that every one of us needs every one of us. That what we nourish, what we nurture grows, and what we don't nurture or nourish dies. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I hope these thoughts that I've shared with us in my welcome keynote today has brought some form of insight, intuition, and inspiration to you. I'd like to, at this point, just pass it on now to our guests and our panelists. Over to you, Petunia.
Hello, everybody. Hello, to all those who joined after I had greeted. A powerful video, Dr. Josh. I once saw it once before, but I didn't really pay much attention, I guess. But today, as you were showing it, it just shows how much is important for us to work with each other. So when you sent me the email about what we will be talking about, nourishing to flourish, and what came to my mind was just the importance of being well nourished from the time of conception. And for me, if you are to become the ideal human being, your foundation when it comes to the time you were conceived is an important element. The mother has to take on or take in nutrients that will make the baby to grow and flourish, nutrients that will make the baby to have to develop, for the bones to develop. But now the issue comes if the mother does not receive the necessary nourishing, which means the baby can't develop into or can't develop to the full potential of what they can be. And I think for most of us, I might be wrong, but for most of us, we never really experience the necessary nourishing, even from the time we were conceived. I know I was conceived in an environment that was lacking. So it was a poverty-stricken environment. My father was nowhere to be found. My mother was out there trying to make ends meet, which meant that I was left with my grandmother. And because of that, we were a lot of grandchildren, and somewhere, somehow, somebody forgot to nourish me properly. And I ended up, being molested at the hands of my neighbor. And when I came back home and I tried to explain to my grandmother what had happened to me, I was actually beaten up and told to shut up. And right there, I realized that, I'm being silenced. And being the type of personality that I am, or the character that I am, I'm very outgoing. I have some sense of humor, I like to think. But I felt that even as a child, I was oppressed from speaking my mind. And as such, I grew up with the attitude or with the motive that, you're going to work hard, you're going to get educated, and you're going to get out of poverty, and you're going to make something out of yourself. So me growing up was really about proving something to myself, that it doesn't matter what happened to me. It doesn't matter the abuse. It doesn't matter the rejection. It doesn't matter the fact that I did not receive the love that I needed from my parents. I did not receive the care. Because with growing up, you need to be getting the necessary attention. You need to be getting the necessary affection. You need to be getting your affirmation from those who are responsible to grow you or to develop you. But I felt that I did not get that. So the onus was on me to do something for myself. And of course, I pushed myself. I pushed against the odds, and I eventually got to university and did my undergrad and continued to do my postgrad and continued to get a job. But you see, all this time, my drive or what was pushing me was the pain from my past. And in 2015, I lost my job, and a contract ended, and somehow it just didn't register in my head that after having worked so hard and pushing myself so much, irrespective of what I was going through, I lost my job. And because of that, I really got into a depressive mode. And now I'm just thinking of Dr. Josh when you are talking about the seeds that we feed our minds. I ended up depressed. I ended up on anxiety meds. I ended up suicidal because it just couldn't register in my head that I had lost my job. And at the time, it was weird because when my mother checked on me to see, how are you doing? Do you have a house? Do you have a roof over your head? Are your children fine? Is your husband fine? Everything, according to somebody out there, looked like perfect. But I was actually the one dying inside, because I think the motives of who I had become were wrong from the foundation. And I started then getting into, obviously, I got in touch with people who were able to help me. And just to reiterate the video that you played, that if I did not have people who were willing to share with me or to nourish me, I could have killed myself, because there were a certain group of people that took it upon themselves to support me when I needed them the most. And with that process, I started trying to find out, who am I actually? I realized I'm already married. I already graduated my postgrad, and I've got, I think, 2 children at the time. But here I was, and I realized I did not know who I was. I realized that all this time I was actually living a lie, because I was influenced by my trauma. And I think those who did psychology will understand. And right there, I started sort of a journey of nourishment. I started getting into self-development programs, personal development programs that would deal obviously with my childhood trauma, but programs that will also equip me. I started removing the labels. I started realizing that I am not my experiences. I am not my pain. I am not my roles. Regardless of whether I have a job, regardless of whether I have children or a husband, or I'm educated, I am still valuable. I am as important as each and every person who is on the planet. With that, I had to enroll on some anger management classes as well. But I also had to get a mentor for different things in my life, for different areas of my life, for my spirituality, for my health, for mothering, for family relations, just for different things. And it was at that point where I removed all these labels and all these expectations that I need to be a particular person, even expectations that come from myself, because sometimes we may think that the expectations are from somebody outside, but the expectations were also of myself. I removed all of those, and I started to ask the question, who am I without all of these things? And if they were taken away from me, what will remain of me? And it was really a crushing experience, I might add, because I realized that I did not know. And I realized that there are so many of us who, we are well in our adult life and we don't necessarily know who we are. We think we know. We try sometimes to mirror or to admire certain groups of people because we recognize that they have similar characteristics or character traits or personalities that we have, but they're not necessarily who we are. So we keep on sort of battling, having an identity crisis. And because of that, we rob the world of what we can actually offer. And with this process, I ended up, writing down my vision. What is it that I am here for? Why was I made? What are my skills? What am I good at? What is it that I can offer the world? What is it that the world can offer to me? Instead of seeing the glass as half empty, my whole perspective changed to seeing the glass as half full. And that's when I actually enrolled in 2017. I did a short program on life coaching, and then I continued to also try to professionalize it by, doing the Masters in Business and Executive Coaching. And yeah, I'm in my second year now. And I'm also on the other side doing a Master's in Divinity. So I love studying because I also believe that the more you learn, the more you nourish yourself, the more you get to hear of different perspectives from people, the more you develop yourself and you are able to give back to the community. So for me, nourishing to flourish means you are operating in a safe environment. You are safe within the confines or the boundaries of where you stay. You have a house, and I'm reminded of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got your security needs met, you've got your health needs met, and it's weird because we are now in the time of COVID-19 with so many uncertainties, people losing their jobs. What does all this mean for us? But I have found that because of what I have invested over the years, I am able to overcome even the pain that comes with what we are faced with now. I have that safe environment where I get the necessary affirmation even as an adult. I get the necessary discipline. I get, the encouragement. I get to accept who I am, but also accept those who are within my environment or my circle, whether it's our business associates, whether it's my friends, whether it's, the coaches, because I also have other coaches that I am, on a regular basis engaging with. And for me, it's a process of continuous development, continuous feeding of ourselves or our mind. And by that, I try as well to read at least a minimum of 3 books per month. I would love that to be more, but it hasn't been the case. But for me, I think that sums up my story of being nourished to flourish. It's about, to just conclude, it's about recognizing your previous experiences and the hurt that come with it. It's about finding out your authentic self, regardless of what you have or what you don't have. It's about knowing who you are and continuously developing yourself so you can impart the necessary skills to the next generation. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Petunia. I think what we should just do, if you have any question that you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat box, and we will take that question after our next facilitator and panelist. Thank you so much, Petunia, for sharing your Nourish to Flourish story. Most definitely, it's an inspiring story, and as you continue to learn so you can lead better. I'm sure Africa and the world will be a better place, gleaning from your experience. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to now pass it on to Dennis, and Dennis would like you to please just take the microphone away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Josh, and thank you, Petunia, for your story. I picked up some pointers that I think are necessary for me to use in order to nourish myself so that I can flourish. When I got this topic for today, I thought the best way to talk about that is to maybe identify what is it that can stop us from nourishing, because we know nourish helps us to maintain whatever that we are busy with in order for us to flourish. And the one thing that I could recall getting from a number of people that I've interacted with, even those that I coached, is fear. And I think Dr. Josh also touched on fear. Now, fear can come in three ways. It can be external fear, which is fear that comes from the outside, like a traumatic experience. I think Petunia talked about that type of fear, that once you are traumatized like that, let me just give a simple example. If you're in an abusive relationship, and then you start having a fear of having a relationship with other people because you think the same thing will happen to you. And that robs you of a beautiful relationship that you could have. So in terms of relationships, you find that instead of nourishing yourself or to flourish, you are now handicapped. Another form of fear is internal fear, which comes in the form of emotions. You can have fear of failure, fear of success. Yes, that people who are afraid to be successful think that, okay, if I become successful, what's going to happen to me? Fear of rejection. And that's what Petunia talked about as well, that she had fear of rejection. Lack of self-worth. At times, even doubt. The third category of fear is subconscious fear. You are fearful, but you are not even aware why you are fearful. And as such, you start having limiting beliefs about life, about yourself. You're putting a ceiling or a cap on what you can actually achieve. And I just want to tell a story in terms of lack of self-worth. Because when I was growing up, my parents divorced, and it really hit me hard because I don't know, I was the firstborn, and somehow, you know, when you are a kid, I don't know, you think in a different way. I thought if I'm a good girl, my parents, you know, will work out the other differences and they will not separate. And I worked very hard to please them both, but it didn't go my way. They separated. And I just felt so down by that incident that instead of being rebellious or just continuing with life, I started to withdraw. And as I withdraw, spending less time with my friends, not expressing my emotions, I started feeling like I'm not worthy. That is why my parents decided no. Irrespective of what Denise does, this is you know, the route that you want to take. I mean, remember I was a child, so my thinking was not so matured. But the result then is that I had a very low self-esteem. And because of that, I missed opportunities and I had regrets. I remember in one organization that I worked at, a colleague of mine asked me this question. She said to me, "What are you doing here?" At first, you know, it took me aback because I didn't understand. I was doing my job, enjoying what I was doing, having good relationships with my colleagues. And how dare she ask me, what am I doing here? But after some time, when I reflected on that question, I realized that she saw a lot of potential in me, but I didn't see it. even though I worked very hard because I grew in a business environment and, work ethic was quite high. If you gave me a project, I would deliver. I was that committed in delivery. But I could never align my performance to what I was feeling inside. And I missed great opportunities. And I'm sharing this so that if it's somebody who also experienced the same thing, they can realize that if you don't get help, what are you going to miss out on? The first example that I'd like to share is just after we got a democracy, there was the rule was relaxed in terms of Black people buying houses in the previously white suburbs. And a colleague of mine came to me and said, Denise, there's somebody who's selling a house in a very posh white suburb. And she was thinking that maybe there can be rich Black people, professionals or business people who might be interested to buy. And I didn't even think twice about that. I just said, no, I don't know anybody. I never even tried to, find out who can be interested, because at that point, because of my low self-esteem, low self-worth, I looked at life according to the way I was feeling. And that house then, in the 90s, where R1 million was like unheard of. And I never also intellectualized that to say, if I don't have R1 million, it doesn't mean the next person doesn't have it. And after that, I looked at myself and say, imagine in the 90s, starting when Black people were beginning to stay in the white suburbs, had I had taken that opportunity, it would be like 2 decades in the real estate industry. I would maybe be talking today from a different background. But that was the pain that I had of a low self-esteem. Another opportunity was, there was a guy who wanted to open a store. And with my business background, they wanted me to run that store, to actually partner. And I felt like, no, this is something beyond me. Irrespective, I had a degree, I had business experience for many years working with my parents, but I didn't feel like I'm capable. And I missed that opportunity. The one regret that I have is that of not looking after myself. Because if you don't look after yourself, how are you going to be able to flourish? I remember there was a lady who worked near where I was working, and she used to always come to work nicely dressed, makeup on, her hair done. And one day I asked her, but how do you get it right? Because for me in the morning, it's rush, 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 rush. I'm rushing to work. And she said, when I draw my budget, the first item on my budget is myself. So I put an amount for my toiletry, for my hair. I check my wardrobe if I need anything. And if I buy myself those things, if I take care of myself, then I'm able to take care of my family. And in hindsight, it really made sense, because a woman, a mother, a wife is responsible for the energy, for the feeling of the whole house. If a wife, a mother, or a sister is not happy, people tap into that negative energy. And if you are happy, everybody else becomes happy. If there's anybody who's not happy in the household, you are going to go out of your way to make that person happy. So it made sense that we have to look at ourselves first before we look at other people. Now, through the struggles and the challenges that I went through in my life and in my career, there are lessons that I learned. And these lessons are what I use to nourish myself, to flourish to a point where I have my own business that I'm running. I have learned that relationships are very important. I have learned that your circle of influence is very important. It is said that you are a sum total of the people that you spend most of your time with. So if you have friends, do an inventory and see who is adding to your life, or whatever area that you want to flourish. Who's adding? And if you find yourself, I like this one, that if you find yourself that in terms of your circle of influence, if you are the smartest person, then you need to change some members in that circle, because you cannot always give. Because as you give, you empty yourself. You also need to refill. So you need somebody or some people who will challenge you, who will stretch you so that you grow and you flourish. Another thing that I learned was the importance of spirituality. And I love the fact that Petunia, you touched on that, because spirituality is about the inside person, not what we see, but what is inside. Who are you? When you are alone, are you comfortable with just being yourself? And meditation helps for you to be able to go inside and be comfortable with who you are. Because once you have peace inside of you, everything else falls into place. Solitude, very important. You can even go to botanical gardens, go to parks, or if you have a garden in your yard, or maybe have a place in your home where you just spend some time with yourself. And that has helped me a lot in my journey. I talked about self-care. I talked about knowing yourself. And knowing yourself, as Petunia has highlighted, is knowing your strengths, your developmental areas, and also what rubs you off the wrong way. Because it's very important as well to know what is it that triggers you. And interestingly, in terms of that, is that the things that we don't like about other people that irritate us, in most cases, is a reflection of who you are. It's the areas within ourselves that we don't want to face. So when that happens, take a moment and ask yourself, why is that happening? Because that is how you start understanding yourself better. Reading books is also another way of taking care of yourself. Attending seminar, depending on the interest that you have, depending on an area that you want to nourish, that you want to flourish, choose books, seminars in that area. When I was working for corporate, and there were a lot of trainings that were offered free of charge, people just register for those courses, for those trainings. But if you don't know where you are going, if you don't have a clear understanding of your goals in a particular sphere of your life, you will then attend, whatever course that comes to you, especially if you don't have to pay. But then you miss out because you spend time on something that is not adding to what you want to achieve. So whatever that you do, you need to align to your bigger vision. So it's important to have somebody assist you to know what is it that you want to achieve can be in terms of your career, of your health, your finances. Get somebody who understands it. And that's where the importance of a coach comes in, and also mentors. So having a coach is a very good investment. Mentors are there because they have walked the path that you are working on. And in my experience, I have found that people are very generous in terms of sharing information. And I normally advise people when I coach them that don't have one or two mentors. Have what I call a board of mentors, because each one of them have a certain expertise. Depending on what you want to learn, you then go to a person who excels in that particular field. The other thing that you also tend to forget is to play. As we grow older, we become too serious. We forget to play. So we need to have hobbies. And we need to schedule that and say, this is my time to play. You can play in many ways. It can be an instrument, can be playing with your kids or your nieces, whatever. But you need to play, because when you play, the body becomes so excited, it becomes happy. And who doesn't want to have that body that is excited? Because that way you are able to flourish. So you are tapping into the resources within your body to help you flourish in the different areas of your life. And it's also important to help other people. I have learned that when I learn something, like if I go to a seminar or a workshop, I learn so much, but at times you forget those things. But if you go or you read a book, but if you read or you go to a training and then from there you package that nicely, you share that with other people, you will never forget. So that is another way of internalizing the new information that you have acquired. I like what John Maxwell calls the law of pain, because in life, there's also pain. But what's important is, what do you do when you're going through the pain? And I have learned that when I go through pain, there's a lesson for me to learn. And it prepares me for the next phase of my life in terms of the area that is giving me the pain. So pain makes us strong and it prepares us for the better phase that is about to come. And this reminds me of a story of a guy who was interviewed talking about COVID-19. And he put it so beautifully and said, you know, when a baby is in his or her mother's womb, it's so comfortable, it's warm. There's food coming through the umbilical cord. And the baby is just comfortable there. But then after 9 months, the baby needs to come out and face us. And the baby will say, I'm not going anywhere. And that is why delivery is so painful and so complicated, because the baby doesn't want to go out because it has been so comfortable inside. But through the struggles, that is the pain that we're going through. Through the struggles, the baby eventually is born. And now the baby is in this new place that they've never been before. Seeing, I mean, the first few days or so, they don't see, but then the minute they get outside, they can see, oh, are people also like me? Okay, those are different from me. Oh, it's so bright, what's going on? Then they learn that there are also different colors. They start appreciating this new life. And if they had stayed in the womb, they wouldn't have experienced that. And that is what pain does for us. It prepares us to this beautiful life or phase of our lives. I'd like to end by referring to a poem by Miriam Williamson. This poem was made popular by Nelson Mandela during his inauguration. And I would encourage whoever is listening, if you don't have it, download it on the internet, laminate it or frame it, and put it somewhere where you can see it to motivate you when you're feeling down. Use it to nourish you so that you can be able to flourish. It goes like this. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Dennis, and we appreciate all the insights that you've shared, and we would like to begin to close by asking a couple of questions that have been put forward, and anyone can go first. Petunia, we would like to also hear your perspective around these questions. What do you do daily to nourish yourself?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Josh, once more. Thank you, Dennis. That was so inspiring, and it's amazing the shared stories that come across. To answer your question, what I do daily to nourish myself, well, I tried so much not to include God in the mix, but he follows me. So I start off my day by meditating on the word of God, and that includes prayer as well. And I try to read at least two chapters in the books that I am also reading for the month. The other activity that I do as well is I spend, I think it's an activity I adopted during the lockdown to spend, some time, like Dennis was saying, playing with my children, actually. I've got a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So I do spend some time to also play with them. I think those activities and the others that I do, they come together and they nourish me daily. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Dennis, what do you do daily to nourish yourself?
Um, I'm laughing because Petunia, your morning ritual is almost like mine. What I do, I pray first thing in the morning, and then I meditate, and then I do a breathing exercise just to get the body working, the energy circulating in my body. And then I also do physical exercises.
Right.
I either go for a walk or do exercises using DVDs.
Okay.
And then I prepare my food because I try to eat healthy.
Right.
So that's my morning nourishment.
Okay. So for everyone who is on the webinar, I'd like you to type in the chat box one thing that you do daily to nourish yourself. While everybody who's still on the chat is typing, I just like to share one or two things I do daily to nourish myself. So when I wake up, I don't get up immediately. So my waking up moment is different from my getting up moment. And in between my waking up and getting up, I breathe a gratitude breath, and I begin to express gratitude for the life I have, my senses, my life, my family. And then I step out of the bed and I put my feet on the ground. It's winter in South Africa, so I wear socks, but I still want to put my feet on the ground first. Intentionally so, because one of my quotes as a coaching psychologist is, your feet needs to be your fears needs to be grounded for your dreams to take off. So I do that every morning, and I put my feet on the ground and I remind myself that whatever fears I have today, they need to be grounded for my dreams to take off. And then I get up and go to the kitchen and I walk. By the way, I don't grab my cell phone. Many people do that in the morning, but I leave my cell phone outside the room, and then I go to the kitchen, heat up some water to have my herbal tea or organic coffee, and then I go and sit in my meditation space and spend the next 2 hours doing meditation. And meditation for me is a couple of things in between. It's breathing healthy and then being mindful, but also reading a spiritual book, and then affirming and speaking into my day the declarations that I believe are important. Of course, recognizing that I am a creator created by the creator. You know, I'm a creature created by the creator, and I always acknowledge and recognize that every day. So if you've typed anything in the chat box, I'd like us to then move to the next question for our panelists. Who are your mentors? And we heard Dennis talk about board of mentors. Who are your mentors? Maybe Petunia, you can go first again, and then Dennis, and then I would also share one or two of mine. But while we are listening to them, please type in the chat box if you have any mentor. Would like to know who your mentors are. Over to you, Petunia, and then Dennis.
Okay, so my mentors, I've got quite a few. Some don't even know that they are my mentors, like your John Maxwell. Okay. But also there's this woman I love so much. I have held all her books like you, Dr. Josh. Her name is Dr. Cindy Trim. Okay. And those who know me, there's a special woman in my life. She is my spiritual mentor, Prophetess Mavis Chokolo. Okay. And I've got a mentor for my business as well. Her name is Neo Mulukwani. And I also have, another mentor in coaching. I think you know him, who is Dr. Mongezi Makalima. And they continue, like I can go the whole day because I like to look at my life like a compass. So right. I have like 12 areas of my life, and for each area I have somebody who I look up to, who I can learn from, which right. is something I also encourage people to have. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dennis?
Yeah, quite a number, depending on the area that at a particular moment I'm focusing on. One of them is July Ndlobu, who was an executive who I used to work. So I tap into his way of leadership. There's also Tony and Elaine. Those two, they mentor me in different ways. The other one is more on the coaching space. The other one is more on the business space.
Right, right.
And I have another one, Venetti, right, who was also an executive for a very big company. So, she mentors me. Mongezi as well is my mentor. So, yeah, there are many.
Thank you so much for sharing.
So there are many. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think I will adopt that whole board of mentors kind of thing. But over the years, what I've tried to do basically is to have one or two mentors. So basically, it will be a mentor who is well-rounded, and then maybe a spiritual mentor. So for me, Dr. Miles Monroe was my mentor. And he was not my mentor from a distance. Once every year, I spent a minimum of 7 days to 30 days with him. And once in a while, when that time comes, he sometimes could be traveling somewhere on the African continent. And then I'm able to actually travel with him and basically serve him, as it were. Because a lot of times, it's quite interesting. When we think of mentorship, we're only thinking of us, benefiting from the mentor. There's a phrase that has been used lately called reverse mentorship. And those who mentor us are able to also, glean some form of, inspiration from our own lives too. And that's one thing that I believe, I wanted to also add to Dr. Miles Monroe's life. I also have a spiritual mentor by the name of a gentleman in West Africa called Dr. Tony Rapu. Aside that, I have business mentors also, and I think we should just get to the very last question. So the last question, Petunia, Dennis, where do you go to nourish yourself?
That's interesting. I go to different places, and I sometimes like to share with people that although I do come across as a very extraverted person, but I actually go within myself, if there is such a word. I actually prefer to spend 2 hours in my bathroom and and nourish my mind, draw from myself and get the inspiration and the creativity. So 80% of the things I do come from that space.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Dennis?
For me, it's walking. I love nature. So where I'm staying, there are a lot of trees. And when I go on my walks, that is the time when I spend time with myself. So I look forward to my walks every day.
Lovely. All right. So for me, where I go to, I actually go inward, and aside going inward, I usually love climbing mountains. And for me, climbing mountains is very, very significant because one of my mentors, and I just remembered right now, is Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who is the father of mindfulness in several ways. And he has this very interesting belief about how for us to be mindful, we can visualize a mountain and recognize that the mountain never has anywhere to go. It is very tall, and we can actually, be as mindful to the point where we're as tall as the mountain, as if we're going to the very summit, but also recognize the valleys. And I think it's important for us to learn to take these journeys. And so just to begin to conclude, I think what I would like to do is to just read out one of the chats in the box. I see Nati Manyati here saying that his mentor lately has been Bridget Tasha Hyacinth. The mentor of our chairperson, maybe I would allow her to actually read it out herself when she's actually closing us. And Teboku, I'm hoping you are still there. I'd like you to, on behalf of the African Institute of the Mind, take it away and just basically express our gratitude to our panelists. Oh, by the way, I would appreciate everyone, please drops their email below. Since it's Women's Month, we will be giving out a copy of my New York Times best-selling co-authorship with Brian Tracy as our special gift to you this month. It's called The Secret to Winning Big. So type your email address in the chat box, and we will gladly send an e-copy of it to you. So from me, Joshua Awesome, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'd now hand over to our chairperson, Teboho, for her closing remarks. And this is a question I'd like you to think about as we conclude. There is no question for which compassion is not the answer. Teboho, are you there? All right. We can't hear you, Teboho.
Yes, I am here. I would really.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Share your mentors and then please close the meeting. Thank you.
Yes. My mentors are Tendani. Tendani is an economist. She was my ex-boss when I was still in corporate. She's an economist. Her surname is Tendani Muchimuni. She's an economist for Liberty Life. And my other mentor, her name is Dr. Buleng. Dr. Buleng is a creativity consultant. She and I met when I was also still in corporate. And she was also working for Henley. So when I started doing a little bit of work for the Henley Business School, we used to work side by side, she and I. And those are the two ladies that I can say are my true mentors. And then now recently, I've been doing quite a lot of personal mastery work and also working through Nancy Klein's books. So she speaks about the 10 components of the thinking environment. And I think the way I've gone into her work, she's really gotten me to a point where I've started questioning the way I do things. I've started questioning the way I listen and I think and I pay attention to everyone. And especially when it comes into a thinking environment, you know, paying attention, getting into a conversation with ease, you know, making sure that everybody understands that we're all equals when we get into conversation, and, you know, giving enough information, being succinct in the type of conversations that you have. I can actually go on. But she's written a book, A Time to Think, and then she's got a sequel to that, which is A More Time to Think. And both those books speak to the 10 components of the thinking environment. And in all honesty, you know, she's one of those women that I can say she's really guided me through quite a bit. And I really look up to her in terms of, you know, the thinking environment, understanding coaching, you know, coaching principles and using those thinking components within the coaching space. And those are the three ladies that I would really say are truly, truly my mentors at the moment. And besides that, but more than anything, I think my biggest mentor in my life was my mother when she was still around, because she really used to guide me in a lot of ways. You know, even our daughters, she was really, she would really listen in and really mentor all of us in a similar direction. Let me not go on forever, because I can go on forever. But Denise and Petunia, I would really love to say thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your vulnerabilities with us, for sharing your, you know, your innermost, you know, thoughts and fears, and who you have become over the years with us, and being open to be so authentic with a group of us and a lot of strangers who have actually connected in to our webinar this afternoon. We are truly grateful. You know, we at the Institute of Mind are truly, truly grateful. And I'd really like to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And that is my parting shot. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful one more time for all of your time. Please, if you can, join us again next month and last Sunday of the month, where we'll be focusing on our theme for the month will be reward. Thank you again, everybody. Ahead. I'd like you to think about something very important as we close. What went well is one thing I'd like you to focus on in the course of the week. Every day, small things, good things that happens to you. What went well? Think about that, and you'll be more thankful that you did. All right, it's from all of us here at the African Institute of the Mind, thanking you for your time. Bye-bye for now. Take charge.